Hello, this is Brad. I'm doing a case study on Apple and I'm presenting this information to Tim Cook and Jeff Williams. First, I'd like to go over the point of this document here. So the purpose of this workbook is to show how well Apple is doing in the market, to show how Apple's competitors are doing, to compare Apple's competitors to Apple, and to show any problem areas. Exhibit 3 is the iPhone sales per quarter. Just shows iPhone quarterlies from 2007 to 2014. Exhibit 6 is the distribution value for iPhone 2010. Exhibit 7 is the iPhone estimated bill of materials 2012. Exhibit 9 is the supply chain ranking by Gartner Group. Exhibit 10 is key comparative information for Samsung, BlackBerry, and Nokia. Exhibit 11 is Apple's historical financial information. And then how to use this workbook, we're going to be navigating using these dashboards down here, these worksheets, clicking on them. And some of them, there are sliders that allow you to get rid of data and make it more visually appealing and relevant. So the first thing to show in the dashboard was the quarterly sales of the iPhone and their top product. The second, it shows Apple's return on assets over the last 7 years, which is just a good metric to show that they're getting value for their assets. And the next is to show the net income of Apple and its competitors in comparison. So we'll go to the dashboard. So here we can see the sales by quarter for the iPhone, which is, as you can see, per year, it goes up every year, which is a really good sign for a company. And here we can get rid of old years with using this right here. We can deselect all this here just to show how it's getting higher up here. Deselect quarters, only show one quarter, maybe show 2 quarters. Or we can just revert back to the normal graph. And then here we have the return on assets, which is showing the company from, I went back 7 years, so 2007, they were up 13%, then they went down a bit, and then they went back on an upward trend all the way up to 2012, and then to 2013 they were back on a little bit of a downturn, but Apple is a highly profitable company, so I have a feeling they'll be going back up in the future. And then here's just a comparison of the companies in millions, per each of their competitors, their main competitors. Samsung, as you can see, is on an upward trend, probably their most aggressive competitor to date. And then BlackBerry is on a downward trend and probably likely to be out of the market. And Nokia also on a very downward trend, not a very strong competitor either. And then, as we can see, Apple is doing much, much better than all the rest of the competition. Their sales all the way upwards in the 40 million here, and these are around 30 million here. These in the low, like 3 million-ish. Right, so Exhibit 3, iPhone sales per quarter. So we're going to have an overview of the supply chain for the iPhone and what the differences it sets apart from the competitors. So just to start here, iPhone has around like 150 suppliers, which is quite a lot. But as you can see, it's one of their highest selling products. It goes up per quarter every year. Q1, year after year, you can literally see from 2007, which is this light blue here, all the way back up to 2014, which is up here. We only have one quarter for 2014, but if we just look at 2013, the difference between 2012 and 2013, if we go here, we can get rid of it and just show 2012 and 2013. We can literally see 2013 went up all years, and then even 2014 adding that in as well in 2011. You can see that it's a steady increase right here, which is a really good sign. So, continuing on here, Apple's key advantages they have over their supply chain. So here's some metrics on the cost of the inputs. So as we can see, the Chinese labor and non-Chinese labor Non-Chinese labor is obviously a lot more expensive, so that is a huge more percentile of it. And then the cost of input materials is where most of their costs come from. But then, as we can see, their profitability, Apple's profits are up the highest of all these things. And then the rest are all pretty steady. So Apple's key advantages in their supply chain is they basically bully their suppliers into just working for them, signing exclusivity deals, all these deals with companies like Foxconn and other highly Apple supply chain companies. So Foxconn, like Primax, again Foxconn, they also buy from Samsung. All these things they buy specifically, and they basically get the best deals they can, which makes their supply chain quite strong actually. And here we can see the bill of materials for the iPhone. So in this chart we just just clean it up a bit, and then we have just some trend lines here just showing the difference between each product. So most of them have the same stuff, like the RAM is the same for all of them, the display and touchscreen is the same for all of them, the processor is the same for all of them. And using the same thing as part of their supply chain, they only source one specific product for their iPhone, no customizability. So they're just using the same processor, same cameras, same wireless, same everything here. The only places it differs usually is the battery here, or we see the bill of materials. There's less materials in the 16 gigabytes, obviously less memory, so it's going to be less materials because we can see right here the memories goes up per unit, so more materials obviously for the N1. And see, by using like a non-customizable product like this, it really helps them get a hold of their supply chain. And then again, we can see right here supply chain rankings by this Gartner group. Apple ranked #1, obviously, and right here we can just show their stats specifically. They're ranked #1. Their peer opinion is very high. Gartner opinion very high. Their weighted average, their inventory turns, it's all very high. 3-year weighted average, and it's all just because they're in huge control of their supply chain. If we even just look at some of their competitors here, like Samsung is another one here, specifically Lenovo, Intel, Dell. We can even see that the weighted revenues is not even close for these companies. The composite score, it's way higher. The Gartner opinion of companies like Intel, I mean, they make processors, so they're not quite in the same industry, but they are in a relatively similar industry. It's a little higher here, but other than that, Apple's still beating all of them in all aspects here, from their ranking to their peer opinion, and then their 3-year weighted average. Anyways, as we were saying, Apple is essentially has a much better supply chain than all their competitors. Here we have comparative information for Samsung. It shows just the accounting information right here, and I've added trend lines so that you can see how the company does year after year, and as you can see, it's mostly upward trends for a company like Samsung. And then I essentially made all the other companies the same layout, including Apple, which was given much more data. Now, to address the challenges Apple will face with their supply chain in the future, essentially Apple, basically with all their competitors, the challenge that they'll face will be having to manage all these competitors and also manage the vast amount of suppliers they have. I would recommend that they reduce that amount to, find a more select group of suppliers that they can contract with. That way they won't be having to manage such an extensive list of contacts. And another thing, challenges in the future, just new methods of logistics. So they'll have to figure out ways around the new methods of logistics that are all coming out, like autonomous traveling and drones and peer-to-peer shipping. And lastly, as Jessica Grantwell recommended recommendations would you make to the company's vice president why and about the shares of Apple's? And I would say to continue to stay with Apple because it's a highly successful company and their shares are only likely to go up as the future progresses. As you can see, year after year, their profits are always raising, especially their quarterly iPhone sales. And the information on the dashboard, which will help the team, is just basically showing how Apple is doing a lot better job than their competitors, so they can just continue to do what they do and innovate their products and be able to manage their supply chain the way they have. They're probably going to continue to be successful, especially if they can streamline and make it more efficient. Thank you.